In the sprawling, muddy tapestry of 20th-century warfare, where innovation constantly chased lethality, few weapons stand out as monuments to an earlier, cruder age. The Mosin-Nagant rifle is not a tale of sleek engineering or cutting-edge design. It is a story of iron, wood, and pure, brutal defiance, a weapon that was, by all accounts, obsolete before the outbreak of the Second World War, yet fought in every conflict since, refusing to be relegated to a museum or a history book. This rifle was born in compromise, steeped in the chaos of a collapsing empire, and forged in the fire of countless, desperate battles. To the casual observer, it appears crude, unwieldy, and a relic of the age of the long rifle. Its bolt action is stiff, its sight radius is long, and its construction speaks of mass production over precision. Indeed, many initial military critiques dismissed it as heavy, slow, and overly simple, believing it a poor competitor to the elegant Mausers and Lee Enfields of the West. The fundamental narrative of the Mosin-Nagant is one of profound underestimation. It was the rifle they laughed at, a symbol of the industrial backwardness of Tsarist Russia and, later, the makeshift desperation of the early Soviet Union. They focused on its flaws, the complex cleaning rod attachment, the tendency for the clip to eject early, the heavy pull required to cycle the bolt after a humid day. They missed the essential, almost primal truth about this weapon. The Mosin-Nagant was not built for parade grounds or precision marksmanship competitions. It was built for survival. It was designed to function when soaked in Siberian mud, frozen solid on the Finnish tundra, or buried under the sands of a Vietnamese jungle. Its brutal simplicity was its greatest virtue, its lack of refinement a testament to its supreme reliability. This is the story of how an outdated piece of iron refused to die, becoming the definitive legend of the Eastern Front and the ultimate symbol of the common soldier's resilience. It is the story of the three-line rifle and how its indestructible nature shocked generals, terrified enemies, and armed more revolutions than perhaps any other rifle in history. The Russian need for speed. The story of the Mosin-Nagant begins in the 1880s, a time when all of Europe's great powers were scrambling to adopt the new technology that was fundamentally changing warfare, smokeless powder and repeating rifles. Russia, still reeling from losses in the Crimean War, recognized its military was dangerously lagging behind. Its standard rifle, the Burden II, was a single-shot, black powder affair that was quickly becoming a liability against the new, high-velocity small arms adopted by Germany and France. The time for modernization was long overdue. The quest for a new rifle resulted in an institutional compromise that would define the weapon for the next century. 3 major designs were submitted, eventually narrowing the competition to 2 primary contenders, Captain Sergei Ivanovich Mosin, a brilliant Russian military engineer, and Leon Nagant, the celebrated Belgian arms designer who had previously worked with the Tsarist government. Mosin's design was purely Russian, focusing on the simple, robust engineering required for manufacture in the vast, often unsophisticated Russian factories. Nagant's design was more complex, featuring a refined feeding mechanism. When the 2 designs were subjected to grueling field trials, neither was found to be perfect. The testing committee, navigating the treacherous waters of military politics and national pride, opted for a solution that satisfied all parties, and, perhaps, truly satisfied no one. They took Mosin's basic rifle design, which was easier to produce, and married it to Nagant's superior magazine loading system. The resulting rifle, officially adopted in 1891, was a hybrid, often referred to as the Mosin-Nagant for the 2 men who contributed to its creation, despite the official Russian designation which generally credited only Mosin. This initial, pragmatic compromise, a blending of native simplicity and imported refinement, was the first step in the rifle's legendary resilience. The 3-line cartridge. Crucial to the rifle's story is its ammunition, the 7.62x54text MMR cartridge. The art stands for rimmed, a design element considered old-fashioned even at the time. Rimmed cartridges are prone to rim lock, where the rims catch on each other inside the magazine, jamming the rifle. Western powers were quickly transitioning to rimless cartridges to avoid this issue. Yet, in true Mosin fashion, the rim design persisted for a crucial, overlooked reason: reliability in challenging environments. Rimmed cartridges are notoriously robust. They seat easily, seal the chamber well, and, most importantly, they are easier to extract when the chamber is dirty, frozen, or coated in mud. For the uneducated conscript soldier fighting a war across thousands of miles of unpredictable terrain, this feature was paramount. It ensured the rifle would fire when a cleaner, more precise German or French rifle would seize up. The 7.62x54x text (MMR) was also a powerhouse. It was hot, powerful, and delivered a punishing blow, both to the target and to the shooter's shoulder. This high velocity and long range would become an indispensable asset decades later when the rifle found its calling as a sniper weapon. The mud of Manchuria. The Mosin's first major trial came in 1904 during the Russo-Japanese War. This brutal conflict, fought across the muddy, unforgiving terrain of Manchuria, instantly exposed the failings of Tsarist logistics and leadership, but it underscored the fundamental soundness of the new rifle. Russian soldiers found their Mosins performed reliably, time and again, under conditions that might have crippled more complex mechanisms. The Japanese, armed with the technically excellent but more delicate Arisaka rifle, sometimes faced jamming issues when the cold and mud became extreme. For the Russian soldier, often poorly trained and ill-supplied, the simplicity of the Mosin's large, sturdy bolt mechanism was a lifesaver. It demanded little maintenance and tolerated abuse. One account from a Russian private noted the rifle was a beast that only needed a beating to be obeyed. This phrase, a beast that only needed a beating, perfectly captures the spirit of the Mosin-Nagant. It was not a precision instrument, it was a rugged tool of survival, meant to be used by simple men in terrible conditions. The Great Slaughter. World War I amplified these lessons to a horrifying degree. As Russia mobilized millions of peasant soldiers, the demand for Mosins became insatiable. Domestic production could not keep up with the catastrophic losses and logistical failures, forcing the Tsarist government to contract manufacturing to foreign firms like Remington and Westinghouse in the United States. The Great War exposed the rifle's primary tactical limitation, its slow rate of fire compared to the British Lee Enfield, which could be operated rapidly by well-trained infantry. Yet, once again, the Mosin's robust nature proved essential. In the brutal, freezing trenches of the Eastern Front, the sheer simplicity of the bolt and the power of the heavy cartridge meant that even a poorly maintained rifle would still fire, often with devastating effect at long range. The Mosin-Nagant became a symbol of the war's vast, impersonal scale, the millions of rifles, all looking identical, equipping millions of peasant conscripts, all marching toward the same inevitable horror. Then came the Russian Revolution and the ensuing civil war. The rifle transcended its role as a mere weapon, it became the arm of a political ideology. Red Guards, White Guards, Czech legions, Bolsheviks, and anarchists, all carried the same three-line rifle. Its ubiquity meant that every faction, every peasant, every revolutionary had access to a powerful, reliable firearm. The rifle was no longer just a weapon of the state, it was the weapon of the revolution itself, standardizing the beast. Following the chaos of the Civil War, the new Soviet Union needed to consolidate its military arsenal. In 1930, the Mosin-Nagant was officially standardized into the model 1891-30. This wasn't a radical redesign, it was a refinement, a cleaning up of the old system. The most notable change was a new, rounded front sight and the replacement of the original octagonal receiver with a more manufacturing-friendly round receiver. Crucially, the long, hexagonal bayonet was standardized and remained an integral part of the rifle's design. The Soviets officially decreed that the rifle must be sighted and fired with the bayonet fixed. This often overlooked detail speaks volumes about the Soviet military doctrine. It wasn't just a philosophical attachment to the bayonet, the weight of the steel rod on the muzzle was factored into the barrel harmonics. The Mosin-Nagant was truly meant to be a pike with a repeating mechanism attached, a weapon for infantry advance, not precision shooting from a static position. The rise of the Soviet sniper. Yet, it was during this interwar period that the Mosin-Nagant was prepared for its most surprising and deadly role, the precision sniper rifle. The Soviet doctrine placed an unprecedented emphasis on the sniper. Unlike Western armies, who viewed snipers as isolated specialists, the Soviets saw snipers as an integrated, political force, the eyes and ears of the revolution, often decorated heroes drawn from the ranks of hunters and trackers. The Mosin was ideally suited for this new role. Its powerful 7.62x54x MMR cartridge was a long-range powerhouse, and its simple design was easy to adapt. The PU scope, a simple yet rugged optic, was fitted to the 1891-30, transforming it into the iconic Soviet sniper rifle of the Second World War. This transformation represents the greatest of the Mosin-Nagant's unexpected twists. A rifle designed for mass, uneducated infantry use suddenly became a tool of deadly, surgical precision. The crude design was elevated by the doctrine and skill of the shooter. The weapon remained the same, but the Soviet ideology had changed its purpose, turning it from a tool of the firing line into a psychological weapon of the battlefield. The Winter War and the Finnish lesson. The true, dramatic vindication of the Mosin-Nagant came in the freezing hell of the 1939 Winter War against Finland. Here, the rifle's reliability faced the ultimate environmental test, and it produced perhaps the greatest legend in the history of sniping. The Soviets brought the standard M1891-30 to Finland, confident that their overwhelming numbers and firepower would quickly crush the small, decentralized Finnish defense. They were wrong. The Finnish forces, fighting on their home ground, used the freezing temperatures and the vast, unpopulated forests to their advantage, perfecting the art of motti, encirclement, tactics. Crucially, the Finnish army was armed almost entirely with captured or domestically modified Mosins. The Finns recognized the fundamental quality of the Mosin's action and cartridge, but they saw its flaws: a rough trigger, excessive length, and rough finish. They modified them extensively, creating the legendary M28-30 and the M39, often called the Ukkomäki, Old Mat. These rifles featured redesigned sights, heavy-duty stocks, and, most importantly, vastly improved barrels and trigger groups. The Finns took the basic, indestructible Russian design and applied their meticulous craftsmanship, creating what are arguably the finest bolt-action rifles of the war. Simo Häyhä, the White Death. It was through a man named Simo Häyhä that the Mosin-Nagant achieved mythological status. A Finnish farmer and skilled hunter, Häyhä was a man perfectly adapted to the environment. He became known as the White Death by the terrified Soviets. Häyhä eschewed the use of a scope, relying only on the iron sights of his simple Finnish-modified Mosin M28-30. His reasoning was practical and brutal: a scope can reflect sunlight, giving away the position, and in extreme cold, condensation and fogging can make it useless. His personal record, achieved using this simple Mosin, is estimated to be over 500 confirmed kills, making him the most effective sniper in history. Häyhä's story is the perfect realization of the Mosin's true genius. It was the ultimate tool for a self-sufficient soldier fighting in the worst possible conditions. The rifle's ability to remain functional in temperatures far below freezing, its long reach, and its sheer power were maximized by a man who respected its simplicity. The Soviets learned, in a bloody and brutal fashion, that the weapon they had created could be turned against them with devastating effectiveness when placed in the hands of a master. The Mosin-Nagant was not obsolete, it simply required a master of its particular, brutal language. The rifle as industrial resilience. When Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa in 1941, the Soviet Union was plunged into a desperate war of industrial survival. Losses in the early months were catastrophic. Millions of soldiers were killed or captured, and millions of rifles were lost. The immediate need for arms was staggering, and in this context, the Mosin-Nagant became the backbone of the Soviet war machine. Factories were evacuated from the west, rebuilt in the Urals, and put to work producing the Mosin rifle with frantic speed. The standards of finish plummeted. Components were rough-cut, stampings were used where forgings were once preferred, and wood stocks were crudely finished. Yet, in the logic of survival, speed and quantity trumped all. The rifle could be produced faster, cheaper, and by less skilled laborers than any other complex weapon. The Soviet Union armed its millions not with the elegant SVT-40 semi-automatic, but with the Mosin-Nagant. This is the central paradox of the rifle's Second World War service. It was produced in conditions of absolute desperation by women, teenagers, and elderly workers, often rushed out of the factory still warm from the press. It looked terrible, felt terrible, and was often cited incorrectly. But, critically, it still fired. The fundamental, unyielding simplicity of Mosin's 1891 design meant that the rifle refused to fail its fundamental purpose, even when its manufacturing quality collapsed around it. The duels of Stalingrad provided the Mosin-Nagant with its most famous stage. In the ruins and rubble, the long-range fighting of the trenches gave way to close quarters, street-to-street combat, a grinding, brutal exchange of life for bricks. Here, the Soviet sniper doctrine proved its worth. The Germans had largely abandoned the use of snipers, but the Soviets deployed them en masse. The Mosin, topped with its 3.5 power PU scope, was the weapon of choice. The legend of Vasily Zaitsev is inextricably linked to the Mosin-Nagant. Zaitsev, a young shepherd from the Ural Mountains, was transformed into the Soviet Union's most celebrated sniper, credited with over 200 kills and the winner of a mythical duel against a high-ranking German sniper. Zaitsev's success was not just a testament to his own skill, but to the suitability of the Mosin in the specific environment of Stalingrad. The bitter cold, the dust, the rubble, and the mud that often incapacitated the more complex German K-98K or semi-automatic weapons barely fazed the Mosin. Its simple bolt could be cycled even while wearing heavy, frozen gloves. Its powerful round could penetrate the light cover the Germans often sought. In the hands of Zaitsev and his comrades, the Mosin was transformed from a tool of mass warfare into a precision instrument that broke the German fighting spirit, the M44 carbine. Of the war, the Mosin received its final major refinement, the M44 carbine. The Red Army recognized that the long 1891-30 rifle was awkward in the cramped confines of armored personnel carriers, trucks, and the tight, urban fighting of Berlin and Eastern Europe. The M44 was a dramatically shortened version of the 1891-30, featuring a permanently attached folding bayonet. It was heavy, loud, and kicked like a mule, but it was robust and maneuverable. It was the epitome of Soviet late-war design philosophy, a short, heavy club that also happened to be a powerful, 5-shot rifle. The M44 served as a perfect transition weapon until the widespread adoption of the Kalashnikov, serving as a brutal, reliable weapon for second-line troops, vehicle crews, and those fighting in close quarters, the rifle of global revolution. In the years following the Second World War, as the world entered the era of the Cold War and the development of modern automatic weapons accelerated, the Mosin-Nagant finally faced what should have been its demise. But the rifle, having survived 2 world wars and a revolution, refused to step aside. The Soviet Union began producing the SKS and, soon after, the AK-47. They shipped their vast inventory of Mosins, tens of millions of rifles, to allies, client states, and revolutionary movements across the globe. The rifle that was supposed to be obsolete in 1941 became the standard arm of countless proxy conflicts. From Korea to the jungle. The Korean War, Chinese and North Korean soldiers were heavily armed with Mosins, often in the carbine M44 configuration. Once again, its cheapness, durability, and effectiveness in harsh, low-tech combat proved its worth. The Mosin-Nagant faced off against American and UN forces armed with the latest M1 Garands and M1 carbines, demonstrating that a well-placed, powerful bolt-action shot was often superior to a rapid but inaccurate burst of automatic fire. The rifle truly earned its final, enduring legend in the jungles of Vietnam. The Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces prized the Mosin, not for its speed, but for its ruggedness. They could be buried for months in a cache under a foot of mud, retrieved, wiped down, and fired almost immediately. The weapon was resistant to the extreme humidity and the corrosive effects of the jungle environment that often caused reliability issues for more complex American rifles. Anecdotes from American soldiers often mentioned the terrifying power and distinct sound of the 7.62/x54 MMR round cracking through the jungle canopy. When the Mosin was used by a trained sniper, often fitted with a salvaged PU scope, it was an absolutely lethal, silent weapon of terror, able to defeat the lighter body armor of the time. The rifle was a constant, haunting presence for American troops, symbolizing the determined, low-tech resistance that was so difficult to suppress. Modernity's relic. Even in the 21st century, the Mosin-Nagant has made surprising and dramatic appearances. It has been documented in the hands of partisans in Afghanistan, rebels in the Balkans, and even in the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine. The reason is simple, and it brings us back to the rifle's core design philosophy: the Mosin is the ultimate survival tool. It is one of the cheapest, most widely available rifles on Earth. Its ammunition is still produced globally. It is so simple that any village blacksmith can fix it. It is so powerful that it remains a formidable long-range hunting and sniping tool. In areas where infrastructure has collapsed and logistics are non-existent, the rifle that was laughed at by the West is the rifle that can be guaranteed to work. The Mosin-Nagant rifle is not an object of elegance. It is an object of brutal, historical necessity. It is loud, it kicks hard, and its action is stiff, reflecting the desperate era in which it was produced. The true twist in the Mosin-Nagant story is this: the qualities the Western powers derided, its large, rimmed cartridge, its simple, heavy bolt, its crude, almost unbreakable iron construction, were not flaws, but rather the very reasons for its longevity. The rifle was designed to survive abuse by a conscript in the mud of the Eastern Front, not to win a target competition on a sunny range. It survived the Tsarist Empire, the Russian Revolution, 2 world wars, the Cold War, and countless conflicts in the world's most inhospitable climates. It armed over 37 million soldiers and counting. The Mosin-Nagant is more than just a rifle, it is a metallic monument to the idea that simplicity is the ultimate form of reliability. It is a legendary testament to the common soldier's resilience, an indestructible piece of iron that, even now, stands ready to serve on the world's forgotten, muddy battlefields, simply because it refuses to die.